we as entrepreneurs, I give us a pass in the sense that there's a million things on our plates, right? We're having to keep so many different balls in the air that we're juggling at one time that it's easy to just assume that marketing and advertising are one and the same. In other words, we're doing the marketing things, right? We're doing the direct mail. We're knocking on doors. We're doing whatever those things are. We're doing the things. And then we turn around in the same breath, we complain that they don't work. And the reason they don't work is because we haven't done exactly what you're talking about.
Welcome again to the Prime Mover Podcast, where we ignite the engine of your success in faith, family, finance, and fitness. Join us as we explore the power of being a prime mover in both your professional and personal life. Hey everybody, welcome to the Prime Mover Podcast, where we ignite the engine of your success through areas such as faith, family, finance, and fitness. And today we have a very special guest on board. We're marketers at heart, Nick and I. And at Prime Mover Podcast, it's our mission to tell a story, to bring a story brand perspective out into the marketplace. Our audience is predominantly blue-collar industries trying to develop their story brand, and we feel like we do a really good job of that here. But we have a marketing professional, expert, not a guru. That's a negative thing now out in the world. But when I was a kid, a guru meant you were super cool, and Wayne definitely looks super cool. I know he's a friend of Nick and a mentor of Nick's, so that definitely certifies him as super cool. So we're glad to have you on Prime Mover Podcast, Wayne Mullins.
Thank y'all so much. Yeah, I'm looking forward to this conversation. So thank you again for the opportunity to be here with you, and excited to talk about some marketing.
Yeah, Wayne. So kind of Travis alluded to it. I've been following Wayne for a long time. When I started my marketing agency, matter of fact, Wayne, I had my entire crew, which consisted of me and one other guy. We sat and watched Wayne's early videos, and we started following him. And then I had the pleasure of actually meeting Wayne in person, go and spend some time at his agency. And Wayne is the real deal. He is in Alexandria, Louisiana, which is not that large of a town. And Wayne has done some incredible things and has an incredible story. So I'm just going to turn it over to you, man, instead of me talking it up. Tell us a little bit about it, Wayne.
Absolutely. So first of all, born and raised here in this area, Alexandria, Pineville, Louisiana. I joke, I haven't made it far in life. The hospital I was born in is literally 3 blocks down the street from our office today. So haven't made it far, but here we are nonetheless. My background really, as it relates to marketing, started when I was in college. For some reason, one year for Christmas, my parents gave me some CDs. Yes, I'm of the CD age when CDs were a thing, of this gentleman by the name of Zig Ziglar. And they were sell CDs. And on those sell CDs, Zig was teaching like how to sell. But what he really actually did was he convinced me that selling was the best profession in the world, the profession that I really should pursue and go into. So midway through my college journey, I decided that when I graduated, that is exactly what I was going to do. I was going to go into selling. And I wish that I could tell y'all that, the next few years were just this magical ride and everything was perfect. And I followed Zig's advice and, the rest, I was born to win and the rest is history. But that wasn't my journey. My journey was I graduated, I got a job in sales, and I sucked. I was horrible at selling. By nature, I'm very much an introvert. So the idea of going to knock on doors, cold calling people, picking up the phone, calling strangers wasn't that exciting to me. But through, I guess you could say, sheer stubbornness, I kept at it, kept pursuing, kept learning, kept growing, from Zig Ziglar to Tom Hopkins to, just you name it. I was studying, I was reading, I was trying to improve and develop my sales ability. And eventually, after about 3 years, I actually got quote unquote good at this thing called selling. That parlayed into me starting a lawn and landscape company. So launched that company after I left a corporate sales job. And over the course of a 3-year period, I grew that company from, startup from zero to we were the largest in this region. So we were the largest company. We had multiple crews, multiple trucks, and we were very recognizable in the marketplace. And we were maintaining all of the largest commercial accounts throughout the area. And what happened during that journey was very interesting. entrepreneurs from other businesses started calling the lawn care company and asking what we were doing to grow so quickly, because it was very visible growth. You could see our signs all over our vehicles and all over our trucks, our signs at the places that we were maintaining. And so other business owners were calling and asking me, what are you doing? How are you growing so quickly? And the answer was marketing. We were doing some very unique, very specific marketing things to grow that agency. And fast forward a little bit, further in that story, I put that business up for sale in December one year, not really knowing what to expect in terms of selling it. I listed it with a business broker out of Lafayette, Louisiana. And within a few weeks, I had a few offers on the table for the business. Ended up selling it and was really just doing marketing consulting on the side at that point. Didn't know what I wanted to do next. But after doing quite a bit of consulting around marketing, decided to go ahead and make this into a business, make it into an agency. And as they say, the rest is history.
Awesome, man. Wayne, tell us a little bit about, I want people to understand almost the size of the agency. You don't have to give us numbers, but just how many employees, how many roughly the clients you've worked with, and that you're not only local, but you're working with global clients. Am I correct in that?
Yeah, you are correct. So, we just celebrated 15 years in business, and at any point in time, we have roughly 100 active clients with us that we work for on a month in, month out basis. And in terms of size, we are multi 7-figure agency. We have 12 full-time employees. It depends on the time, but we have, 2, 3, sometimes 4 part-time employees. And then we also use, a lot of subcontractors for photography, videography, things like that to come in and help with various projects.
Yeah, man. So Wayne's the real deal is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, he drummed up some questions. First, congratulations on 15 years, man. I've been at it right at 20 years myself, and I realize that learning how to pivot and continue to grow and change your organization is something that you have to be an expert in if you're going to withstand the test of time and longevity. So Nick asked questions generally about the agency. And so I think a lot of entrepreneurs, whether you're in a marketing agency or you're in home services or commercial services, the dumbed down version would be getting clients. How do I get clients? And so for a marketing agency, what tactics and tools do you teach, but then also apply to your marketing agency to get clients? Is it strictly referral based, or is it your content creation or reputation? Maybe shed a little light on how Wayne makes the phone ring or gets clients per se.
Sure. I love the question. And what I want to do is start, I guess, more high level, and then we can dive into very, very specific examples of, some things that we've done or that we would recommend. So the very first place I love to start with people when we talk about marketing is, you think about a wheel. So a wheel like on a bicycle. So the center of that wheel is the hub. And it's at that hub where people hand you money for your products, your services, or whatever it may be. And on a bicycle wheel, there's all these little lines that come down from the rim down to the hub, and those things are called spokes. And so the question becomes, how many of those spokes do you have in your business that are leading people from out there in the world down to the point where they can hand you money? And what's so fascinating to me is when we ask this question to people, when they tell us our sales are down or our sales are slow or we're just not making progress, we ask, well, tell us about the things you're doing. And so usually they'll name 1 or 2 things that they're doing in terms of quote unquote marketing. So, we're doing some Facebook posts, or maybe we're doing some direct mail, or maybe we're doing television or radio, so they'll name 1 or 2 things that they're doing. And yet they're complaining that they don't have enough people ending up in that hub, the place where they give them money. So the very first thing you have to do is you have to give yourself an honest evaluation of your marketing wheel. How many spokes are you actually utilizing? Now, I'm not talking about occasionally utilizing. I'm talking about actively utilizing month in and month out. Because if that answer is 1, 2, or 3, then what I can tell you is you're putting your business in a position of high risk. We've all heard horror stories of Facebook removing or deleting pages, removing people's access to pages for no reason, accidentally, because of AI, because of whatever. It happens. So imagine if right now all of your business is coming through Facebook or Instagram, and maybe you've mastered that. What happens if that spoke disappears? Your business is now on a lifeline, right? Life support. So that is where I love to start. And I think the question for anyone listening is just simply that. How many of those spokes can you honestly say that you're devoting time and attention to?
Hey, great answer. And that affirms, I'll show my screen to the camera, but that definitely affirms kind of how my brain works. And I know Nick's as well. Is multi-channel, making sure that your lead generation source is a combination of physically hustling, digitally hustling, uh, branding, marketing. So there's so many different parts of it. About I don't know, about a week ago,
Mhm.
I'm going through LinkedIn. For those of you that don't know, if you sell B2B or even B2C, the algorithm on LinkedIn is really intelligent, and I really enjoy LinkedIn, and how it converts. But I saw a video of you doing on a whiteboard the marketing wheel. I literally dreamed this up about 6, 8 months ago and created one for our company. And then when I saw you on LinkedIn, I sent it to Nick. I said, got to get him on the podcast. So just for those of you that need to see it, or an example, the camera could even zoom in, is this is our marketing wheel. And the way we have it divided is everything in green are physical services that we can provide to a client to drag revenue to the middle. Everything in orange are interactions that a client can actually do for us to drag revenue, referrals, allowing us to put a yard sign in place, posting on social media. So our entire staff, whether they use every spoke of it or not on a daily basis, that's our job to kind of steer that. But man, that is probably the most profound yet simplistic way to know that you are multi-channel marketing is creating at wheel. And I just love it. That's a great concept. I'm not taking credit for it because it came to me in a dream, but maybe I knew you before I knew you. I don't know.
There you go. You never know. What's so fascinating about that, Travis, is that, you know, what I firmly believe is, we live in a day and age where there's quote unquote a new social platform. Seems like every other week there's a new thing we can and should quote unquote be doing as marketers to market our businesses. But at the end of the day, the things that work well and produce the most results are proven strategies. It's not all these little tactical things. So that marketing wheel, that whole idea, that's a strategy, right? It's strategic thinking. It's not like, oh, I see a competitor today that's over on this platform, so we better hurry up and go do this platform, right? It's what is our strategy around all of these different spokes, bringing people into that hub. And that hub, at the end of the day, that hub determines whether or not you stay in business or you don't. So it's very important that you have those spokes outlined.
Word.
Yeah, man. That's awesome. Wayne just dropped so much knowledge, man. Sometimes I'm just like sitting here soaking it up.
Yeah, that's great. So what in your marketing agency now, what's part of your marketing spokes? Like what I would say two-part question. The first part is obviously I want you to expound some more on maybe what your marketing wheel looks like specifically for Ugly Mug. And then also maybe talk about what niche. Nick has a great way of explaining it. My daughter just graduated or is in the process of graduating high school and is going to pursue a career in marketing. Not sure where she gets that from. I guess she's probably been riding around with me for her 18 years of life. She's going to come to work for us as a marketer, and she's already kind of doing some social media management on a small scale. So, advice to up and coming marketers. I know what mine has been, but I'd love to hear someone who's been a career marketer. So first start off by letting us know kind of what are the spokes on Ugly Mug's wheel, and then parlay that into advice for up and coming marketers or who aspire to be marketers.
Absolutely. So I'll jump into a few. So for us, we do all the quote unquote social media stuff that everyone does. And the way I actually think about that is I think about that as one spoke. Now, again, there's multiple, sub spokes, I guess you could say, within that spoke, but we do that. Another example of things we do is I'm here with you today on this podcast. So this is a spoke for us in terms of, letting people know that we exist, that we're here. Others are, we actually do physical direct mail to people. So we actually print a newspaper, an actual physical newspaper with articles, tips, advice, and we send those out to our clients and to prospects. Others are, we host a lot of in-person events. So Nick's actually been here to the office. We have I would say, a fairly cool office space. Next week, for example, we're hosting a marketing lunch and learn. So we use a lot of events, lunch and learns, breakfast clubs, where we bring people in, we feed them, give them some good food, and we just talk about marketing. It's not a sales pitch. We're talking about marketing. We're talking about the things that they can and should be doing in their businesses. Other spokes for us are, we actually also kind of host our own, it's not really a podcast. It's on one of our social channels. It's called Coffee Chats. And so every single week we have somebody come in and we're just interviewing them about what they're up to, what they're doing. And so we try to take that from a very specific marketing angle with people. Others would be, we're in the public a lot doing events. Yesterday, I was speaking in another small community at their Chamber of Commerce, out there sharing what we're doing. Others would be that we are huge believers in creating evangelists. So like the bottom part of your wheel that you were mentioning, Travis, we're a huge believer in ensuring that we have very clear, specific paths that are set up so that we turn our existing clients into evangelists, into people who love us so much that they're willing to go out and tell other people about us. And so those things include very basic things like sending handwritten thank you notes to every new client who comes in, sending goodie baskets, so brownies and cookies and things like that to clients when they sign new contracts with us, sending them birthday cards, sending them birthday presents in the mail, sending their website an anniversary card. It's your 1-year anniversary. Congratulations. So we're thinking about this from a multi-channel, omni-channel, if you will, perspective. And our goal is simply this. We don't know when one of those spokes is going to dry up. We don't know when one of those spokes is really going to start converting well. So our job is to fill out as many of those spokes as possible.
Man, that's awesome. Travis has heard me use the evangelist a lot because obviously, like I said, learned a lot of knowledge of marketing from Wayne, and just having that person to talk about fulfillment, I guess, is what I want to get to. I was skirting around it, but in order for them to be an evangelist, it's more than cookies. It's more than handwritten notes. Could you speak to kind of just in general fulfillment and being on top of your game and how important that is as well?
Absolutely. So first of all, what I would say is when we think about marketing, we often really just think about advertising, and that's a huge mistake. So your marketing is the way that you answer the phone. Your marketing is the smudges, or are the smudges on your front glass door. Those smudges and handprints all over your front glass door are communicating a marketing message to the people walking through that door. The trash in your parking lot is a marketing message. The fact that you do or don't respond to emails in a timely manner is a marketing message. Everything that we do in terms of point of interaction with customers or clients is a marketing message. And I see this time and time again, and this is so sad to see, but we have people who come to us and they think they need help with quote unquote marketing, right? They say they need marketing, but what they're asking for is advertising. We need better billboards, or we need better television, or we need better social media campaigns. And the reality is they're spending all this money. They're investing this money in these channels that could be great for them, only to blow that money when people actually reach out and they don't respond back in timely manners. They don't respond to messages on Facebook or Instagram. And so that is a challenge for us as entrepreneurs, as business owners. We can no longer just sit back and say the marketing isn't working. We first must do what we would call an experience litmus test. So in other words, Bain and Company, let me give this stat real quick. Bain and Company, it's a consulting firm, global consulting firm. They did this survey where they surveyed 4,000 small businesses in the United States. And they went to these business owners and they said, look, there's 5 levels of service. There's terrible service, and at the top end, there's phenomenal service. And there's obviously a few in the middle there, but which level of service do you provide to your customers? So they surveyed 4,000 entrepreneurs, 4,000 business owners. 80% of them said we provide phenomenal service, the top level service. So Bain and Company, they're extremely smart people there. They said, something's not right with this. There's no way out of 4,000 random businesses selected that 80% actually provide phenomenal service. So they go back to the businesses and they say, would you mind if we actually surveyed some of your customers and asked them the same question? We know you do business with Ugly Mug Marketing. Which of these 5 levels of service do they actually provide? Bain and Company went and asked the customers of those companies. And the stats came back that only 8% of those customers said that those companies provide the highest level of service.
Wow.
So in our minds as entrepreneurs, sometimes we have to be honest with ourselves, brutally honest, and we have to be willing to admit that our baby's ugly. And that is something that we don't want to hear, right? We pour our lives into our businesses. We risk a lot to grow our businesses. And it's very difficult for us sometimes to admit that our baby's actually ugly, that there's things that we need to improve. Maybe we aren't delivering the service that we think we are. And so if you're experiencing quote unquote marketing problems, I would challenge you first to look at the litmus test. Do a litmus test. Are you actually delivering the level of service, fulfilling the products and services in the way that you actually think you are?
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Or client fulfillment to me is the part of marketing that's not sexy. A lot of people talk about multiple streams, like direct mail, pay-per-click, running Facebook ads, running TikTok ads, billboards, newspapers, magazines. You name it. There's old school marketing that, in my opinion, still works. But ultimately, the 2 things that don't get talked about enough, we talked about it in our meeting with our technicians this morning, is having a clear call to action. You have to ask for what you want. And then secondly, it's fulfillment or follow-up. And we do that using a CRM. We're big Go High Level fans. We've kind of built out a custom Go High Level CRM for our organization and for 3 different companies now inside of our realm. And I don't know where you are on this. Some people in marketing still believe, but don't even always believe in a CRM. I've literally had marketers tell me, I just use Google Calendar and AI, and that's how I roll. I want to know what your thoughts are on ad spend and putting out ad spend dollars without having some type of system or technology-based system to follow up and fulfill, such as a CRM.
Yeah, I would say it's stupid, right? It's stupid. It's the difference though between, what often happens, and there's lots of ways people explain this, but it's like throwing spaghetti at the wall to see what sticks, right? We're going to invest all this time, energy, and effort in creating these marketing things. And then what we're going to do is we're going to complain that it doesn't work because we don't have an appropriate follow-up system in place. It's just stupid. And yet we as entrepreneurs, I give us a pass in the sense that there's a million things on our plates, right? We're having to keep so many different balls in the air that we're juggling at one time that it's easy to just assume that marketing and advertising are one and the same. In other words, we're doing the marketing things, right? We're doing the direct mail. We're knocking on doors. We're doing whatever those things are. We're doing the things. And then we turn around in the same breath, we complain that they don't work. And the reason they don't work is because we haven't done exactly what you're talking about. We haven't built systems and processes that ensure that we're actually following up, that we're nurturing, that we're building the relationships with the people who raise their hands and say, hey, I'm at least remotely interested in the thing you've got. Tell me more about it.
Yeah, I agree. Call to action, is something I was just actually, billboard company just started messaging me on Facebook Messenger like a few minutes ago. And I'm in the process of talking to the guy, like asking, I don't see you guys on many billboards and stuff like that. And I'm like, well, some people have areas or avenues of marketing that maybe aren't as conducive to ROI or their specific brand. But my response to him was, I'm interested. However, in my opinion, billboards have gone like astronomical in terms of price over the last 4 or 5 years. And he came back and ultimately, like a marketer should, and battled my objection, which I really wasn't objecting. I was just providing my personal experience with billboards. And he was talking about most people don't have an aggressive call to action. And so maybe talk about that a little bit. Like, what is a CTA and what is your preferred CTA, and how do salespeople when marketers hand a salesperson a lead from a swift call to action, how do we convert that CTA to a sale?
Sure. Yeah, I love the question. I think you're spot on. We are terrible at telling people what to do next. We live in a world where we think marketing messages are using a bunch of platitudes. In other words, we throw our logo up on something, we say excellent service, been in business 30 years, friendly people. We list all these platitudes that anybody else could say. And then maybe we slap our phone number up there, our website up there, and then we wonder why we don't know if it's working. Well, we haven't told people specifically what to do. Do we want them to pick up the phone and call? Do we want them to click on the website? Do we want them to stop by the office? Like, what specifically do you want them to do when they interact with that ad? The way we teach it is you have to imagine that the person, that is interacting with your piece of content, your marketing message, you have to imagine that they are the laziest person you will ever meet. In other words, they don't want to do anything. Your job is to tell them the very next step. I'm not telling you to go run a 5-mile race. I'm telling you to get up off the couch and put on your shoes, right? And so it's the one little baby step that's next. And that is where the follow-up comes in. Because when we tell them, pick up the phone and call, or click on this link and go to this particular page, fill out the form, whatever that thing may be, it then falls back on us. And sometimes we don't like that, right? We would rather put the weight and the obligation on them. And then we complain that no one's, that our ads aren't effective, that they're not converting well. And the reason is we haven't specifically told them what to do next. And then when they take that action, we're not stepping in and helping escort them through the process, through the sales process.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Yeah, I think he's spot on. We know he's spot on.
Yeah, for sure.
I think that's just a huge part that's missing. And if you, from a blue collar perspective, if you're the entrepreneur in a business, a startup, if you're a one man band or just kind of building out, you have to reach out. Like Wayne said, you got to make that call. You got to respond. And that's a core value you got to adopt, is being able to respond to it. And then kind of knowing what to do from there, like to the fulfillment. Everything's a marketing message, right? Like Wayne just said, the fulfillment, pick up the weeds in the driveway or in the parking lot, all that matters.
Right. I agree. If you're understanding the self-awareness as a business owner, as a business, as a sales team, as a person, self-awareness is key to figuring out where your strong points and weak points are as a company. So like, speaking directly to the call to action, it's like if you go, anybody right now could open up their phone, take a picture, write some copy or get AI to write the copy, post it on Facebook and press boost. And what's next? They're going to ask you about your target audience. They're going to ask you, what is your call to action? Do you want to get more leads? Do you want to get more inbox messages? Do you want to have them to call your office? Do you want them to go to your website? Well, as a company, if you know that your weakest part is answering the phone, then choose a different call to action. If you have one person in the phone that you trust on the phone and you're going to boost a post, we're in the power generation business by trade. Well, guess what? Go look at a map right now. Power outages across the Gulf Coast today are rampant. Well, we've got a great call to action. If you call us, if you go to our website, if you text us, it'll go through our CRM. But it wasn't always that way. It was sometimes, I don't want to call our office because I'll bombard our CSRs. So understanding where your strong points and weak points are. If you're a blue collar business and you're still out in the field and all of your team is pretty much out in the field, don't make call my number the call to action. Maybe it's send us an email, go to my website and book service, but carrying them through the dumbed down version of what to do next has to be part of a SWOT analysis of your sales and marketing branch in the business. If you don't answer the phone, don't put call me as a call to action. It's probably not a great idea.
I don't want to jump on a dead horse, but how many businesses don't answer the
Oh my
phone?
God.
Like it blows my mind, especially service businesses that we run through. You get an answering machine, you get a we'll call you back, and I'm just like, man, I could give you 100 leads, but
Yeah.
how many are you gonna miss by not doing the fulfillment? And I think that's a huge.
Yeah, let me jump in with one thing real quick to just piggyback on that. So again, we work with clients from across the country, and we've had the privilege of working in a lot of different industries. And I'm not going to give any specifics here because I don't want to incriminate anyone. Not that it's
Sure,
criminal, but
sure.
we had a client who came to us and they had a very high profit, high margin product, and they wanted us to do lead generation for them. In other words, they want people who are interested in what they sell. And so we were starting to run these lead gen campaigns and we were dialing them in, getting really good results. We were driving the cost per lead down. Initially, it was around $30. We'd gotten it down to below $15 consistently for these leads. And after about 2 months in, we get a call from the owner saying, this just isn't working. Like we're just not seeing the ROI from our investment in all this, on all these ads, and from the leads that are coming in, we're just not seeing them close. And so we asked just a few probing questions and we say, okay, so, we've generated over the last 2 months, we've generated, I don't remember the numbers now. Let's just call it 100 leads, 100 people on this list. And just curious, walk us through how you're actually following up with these leads. Well, the answer comes back, well, I'm not entirely sure. I'm like, okay, well, let's dive into this a little bit more. What do you mean you're not sure? Well, I know they're on the list. Y'all showed us how to get to the list. And I know that this person was supposed to be in charge of following up with them. Let me reach out to them and just see how the follow-up's going. So, they put us on hold. They reach out to the other person comes back and says, yeah, well, I started going through some of those leads and a couple of people didn't answer. So I put it off and I really haven't followed up with any of them. So in 2 months time, we generated, again, I don't remember the exact number. It was a lot of leads, around 100 leads. And they'd followed up with maybe 2 or 3 of them.
Wow.
And so again, before we start blaming the marketing for not working, sometimes it's good to look at, do we have the follow-up in place? And is our team actually using the systems and processes that exist to follow up with those leads? Following up one time isn't sufficient, right? If somebody raises their hand and says, hey, I'm interested in the thing that you sell, just because you call one time and they don't answer, or just because you call 2 times and they don't answer, doesn't mean they're no longer interested. It just may mean you've called them at bad times. They were at work, they were busy with family, whatever. So persistence is key when it comes to follow-up. And that is why having a CRM, something that can hold you and hold your team accountable, is so, so important.
Yeah, man, I agree. That has, I would say, and Travis can back me on this, the CRM has transformed the generator business for us in terms of just not allowing leads to slip away. Not allowing people to make those 2 phone calls and then, we wait a little too long to call them back a 3rd time or a 4th time, and keeping us persistent. I think that.
I agree. I mean, I was going to parlay that part of the conversation on get Wayne's opinion on this because I haven't heard a stat on it recently. But when I first started quote unquote marketing or realizing that I was, as a CEO, I was a marketer. I remember stats saying that someone had to pass a consumer's eyes 5 times before they decided to take the next step. With the flood of social advertising and Google ads and stuff now, in my mind, and our CRM can now prove it, sometimes it's 10, sometimes it's 8 times we have to interact with a client. And a lead is truly never dead, especially if you have multiple offers and services that you could sell to somebody. Again, we'll keep using the generator company, but selling someone a new generator is our core business, but it's not our only business. We have high ticket, we have low ticket, we have services, we have products. So even when a lead says, I bought somewhere else, we still have other ancillaries and services that we could provide them. So that just speaks to a lead never really being cold or dead for me. But I would love your take on how many touch times or touch points are you seeing nowadays before consumers click and buy or call and buy?
Yeah. So the new quote unquote stats that I've seen around that are actually fall right in the range you're talking about. It's 7 to 11 is the new one I've heard. So your numbers are spot on in between that. And that is it. Like, again, we often can be so lazy with our marketing. We want to run the ad, we want to do the campaign, and then we want everything to take care of itself. And that's not the way it works, particularly when, the higher the ticket price, the more touch points are required. If you're selling a cup of coffee, sure, one touch point may be enough, right? Or two. But the higher the ticket price goes, generally speaking, the more touch points you have to have along the way.
Yeah. And consumers are, I was listening to, I don't know if you know, Patrick Bet-David is somebody I've mentioned on this podcast for a long time. He's an entrepreneurial influencer, investor. He owns a portion of the Yankees now, done very well for himself. Very, very intuitive when it comes to marketing and consumers and buyers strategy. And so I was listening to his news, and they were talking about this buy now, pay later and what it's doing to the marketplace, because it's ultimately credit score free, but credit card debt is at an all-time high. The stat that blew me away was it was like 22 billion or maybe even 22 trillion dollars in consumer savings decline since COVID. Like there's 22 billion or 22 trillion, either way, it's a big number of less money in people's savings accounts than there was. But what happened was when the interest rates went up and we started getting into this recession that nobody wants to talk about, buyer trends changed. And so marketers can't get lazy. We got to work our tail off now to get the buyer to actually click and buy. They're being bombarded with ads by everybody under the sun because now scrolling it's a phenomenon.
It's a hobby now.
Yeah, it's a penance depending on what portion of the spectrum you're on, buyer, consumer, marketer. But buyers have become lazy. And just outside of our office now, I don't drink iced coffee, but I have one today, a $7 iced coffee, because a coffee shop decided to go mobile and they pop up at different businesses. And our parking lot for a company who sells high ticket luxury equipment has been full all morning because people follow this mobile coffee shop to wherever they go. And so you didn't see this 2 or 3 years ago. So you have to actually, if you're not going to be aggressive as a marketer, sometimes you have to bring your goods and services right to your client's doorstep to get them to buy. And so the reason I brought up the credit card debt, less savings, because buyers haven't gone away. They've just changed the way they buy. And sometimes you got to bring your goods and services directly to their door to get them to buy. So marketing is the last place in your business you can afford to be lazy. You better learn to pivot and find new ways to touch buyers because their trends have changed. Haven't you seen that?
Absolutely. And completely agree. What's interesting though is that there's two different mindsets in the entrepreneurial world. One is I'm going to whine and complain the fact that people are more difficult to sell. There's too many social media platforms. There's this long list of reasons why our business is down or why we're not doing as well as we used to do. Then the other mindset is everything has changed. And if we're going to compete, if we're going to win, we're going to change. We're going to have to change in order to win. And, it's the sort of tying into the Warren Buffett advice that you buy when everyone else is fearful. And right now is the time for you to be aggressive with your marketing. While people are pulling back, where other businesses are pulling back and shrinking back, now is the time to expand, because they realize, everyone across the board realizes, it is more difficult now. It's more difficult to capture attention. It's more difficult to keep attention. It's more difficult to nurture the leads. All of it's more difficult, which creates an amazing opportunity for those who are willing to give up their excuses, to give up all the reasons why it's not working, and instead pivot and focus on what is working and how do we capture that attention? How do we maintain it?
100% agree. I think the most expensive real estate is digital real estate. A few years ago, I would love how everyone would say, I even said it, hey, you got social media is free. You can just post online and people just start calling you. Well, that's changed quite a bit because since COVID, everyone has converted a lot of their ad spend and marketing efforts to digital real estate. And the reason why I say it's the most expensive is because without the proper systems and procedures to back up that digital investment, it'll fall on deaf ears and you'll lose ad spend money faster than you can put it out there. Whereas in comparison to real hard actual real estate, typically, even though you buy now and sell later, you could screw up a lot of things and still get your money back. If you buy in real estate, even at a sliver of land, will over time increase value. But digital real estate is so expensive because you have to do the work in order for that real estate to pay dividends now rather than later.
Yeah, I think either way, you've got to do the work, right?
Yep.
Digital marketing, they make it so easy to do the thing, right? You can click the boost post button and within 5 minutes, you can have something up and running. So they make it easy on the front end, which means there's going to be more work on the back end. The work hasn't gone away. The work is still there. It's just deceptive because it's now so easy to click the button and do the thing. And so I think sometimes that we think these tools, all this technology, is going to shorten or lessen the amount of work that's required to do marketing. And sure, the technology makes it easier to ensure things don't fall through the cracks and easier to reach new people. But that doesn't negate, that doesn't remove our responsibility to ensure we have the proper systems, the proper processes in place, and the proper service once we sell the thing to ensure that we're actually creating evangelists, creating raving fans who are willing to go out and talk about us to other people.
Wayne, so 15 years in marketing, I want you to kind of talk about, because we're talking about the trends since COVID, but in your 15 years, have you, like, how many different, and I guess I might be asking this question a little wrong, but how many different buying trends have you seen over the 15 years? How often do consumers switch? Is that something more recent where it's been steady in the early days, or have you seen a cycle? Have you been able to pinpoint that within your business?
Yeah, one of the biggest trends I think I've noticed over the last 15 years is this, that in the early days, authority sold. So an example of that would be someone who's in a position of authority. You could hire someone who is an authority figure and they would sell on your behalf. In other words, simply having someone who's an authority figure, an expert, would allow you to sell more easily. Nowadays, what it's all about is authenticity. People want to know that you're genuine, that you're real, that you're authentic. And that is a huge pivot, because before we could show up as marketers and say, trust us, we're the best. Now that no longer works. Now, the very first thing, if you shop on Amazon, the very first thing you do when you're looking at a product is you scroll down to the very bottom and you look at the reviews. Right? It doesn't matter what you're buying. It could be a tube of toothpaste. You're going to scroll down and look at the reviews. And here's the crazy thing. Think about this. You're going to go look at and trust the opinion and the advice of a bunch of strangers who you've never met, who could all be paid, who could all be psychopaths, who could all be whatever. You're going to trust them far more than you trust anything the company says. So I could get up here all day long and tell you how amazing my company is, and you're still going to be skeptical. But if 2, 3, 4 of your friends come to you and say, hey, their company really is amazing, like you're going to trust them, right? There's a level of authenticity there, and you're imparting the trust on my behalf. In other words, all those reviews on Amazon, it's about imparting trust. You're going to them for trust. Can I trust that this product is going to, solve the problem or help me achieve whatever it is I want to achieve? And so I think that's a huge trend. The other huge trend that, again, maybe I'm sound like I'm just repeating the same thing here, but the other huge trend that I've seen is that I really believe that we as marketers have gotten lazier over time. Mm-hmm. Technology has made us lazier. So I'm going to jump back to give you a very tactile example from when I had the lawn and landscape company to explain, this was really pre-social media. There was no real way to advertise on social media at that point. So when I started the business, it was like 90% residential, very little commercial. But my goal was to get it all commercial because those were year-round contracts. Those were contracts that I could then, count on the revenue, grow a team, build the business. And so what we would do to go in and try to win these big commercial accounts is we wouldn't go in and pitch to the property manager or the owner. Instead, what we would do is every single Friday, we would go buy dozens of donuts, boxes of donuts, and we would put our logo on the top of the box of donuts with our phone number. And then we'd go into the business and we would not ask for the decision maker. We would just go in and talk to the employees and just say, hey, we were in the area doing some work. Just wanted to drop these donuts off for you. We would go in the back door of the restaurants through the kitchens when they were doing the food prep in the mornings. We would go in and just say, hey, we're in the area working. Just wanted to drop off some donuts for you guys. An amazing thing happened slowly over time. The owner, the decision maker would come in one day and realize that the grass at the front of the restaurant hadn't been cut in a month. And they would come in and they would say, have any of y'all seen the lawn care people? Like the grass looks terrible out there. And they would say, no, we haven't. But there's this company that comes by on a regular basis. They bring us donuts. Maybe you should reach out to them. And so what we did was we built evangelists within all of these organizations who did the selling on our behalf. Now, what did the donuts cost us? We were probably spending, I could go back and actually find the actual numbers. We were probably spending $500 or $600 a month on donuts. That's a lot of money on donuts, right? It's a lot of donuts.
Especially back then, man.
Yeah. But think about this. On the other hand, we could have done one billboard. We could have done, a few radio spots in a month. But instead, what we were doing, we were investing in building evangelists within those organizations. And we were playing the long-term game, right? We weren't playing the short-term game. We were playing to win. We weren't just playing to win a client today. We were playing to win them all over the course of time. And that's exactly what we did. We went from 90% residential to 90% commercial. And we went from not having any of the big companies, the big commercial accounts, to having virtually all of them over the course of a 3-year period.
Man, that's great. That's a great tactic to actually use because I do feel, even being a digital marketer, I do feel that the digital marketing landscape is so cluttered and that you need to have that extra spoke, like you talked about, to have that personal touch. That hopefully our listeners are really taking this and writing this down, because there's a lot of jewels being dropped right here.
Well, it's like when we wrapped up our team meeting this morning talking about Google reviews. And I think from the employee perspective, they don't always get it. Don't get me wrong, they love to get a Google review where a client takes a bunch of time and writes a compelling story about how amazing their experience was. But that's a little bit of reverse psychology, because what I want to go to next and kind of like close out the beginning of the end of our 1 hour is story brand. So that's my passion. I think that selling from authority is important, but I also think authenticity trumps that. I think in a congested landscape, this is actually, if you're an economist out there or you're somebody who pays attention to what's going on, challenge me, please. Send us a comment on YouTube or send us a DM if you want to talk about this, because we could do a whole podcast on it. But I'm wrapping up telling our guys, hey, these Google reviews matter, because what it does, it's purchase justification for Sharon or for Bob. When they buy something new, they want to stand outside in front of their home with their arms crossed, with the yard sign in their yard. And why did you buy that? Well, because it's the best. Well, why? Well, because they have the best service. Well, why? Because They came fast. Why? Because it was affordable and they want to justify the purchase. Well, we can now do purchase justification digitally, and it also helps create a compelling story brand. So I can tell you from an employee perspective, they would prefer a client write a compelling testimony of their experience versus just clicking the 5 star. Well, that's the same thing to listen up CEOs, business owners, and entrepreneurs. Tell your story. It matters. Nick and I took a client on last month. We went out to Florida, and they know a little bit about our company, and the owner said, I don't have a cool story like you. Okay, well, that's your opinion, but let me do a little poking and prodding around. After just a few minutes, we find out that 90% of their staff is ex-military. Well, that's a pretty cool story. So I think we should tell that story. I think that your buyers, consumers, your avatar per se, would love the military. Well, how do you know that? Well, because I've already studied your ideal customer, and that's something that's a whole nother topic, is people don't know who they're marketing to. You can't sell to everybody. You got to figure out who you're selling to. But telling a compelling story, bringing a brand to life based on a story, is the magic, in my opinion. It's what gets my creative juices flowing when we take on a client to do marketing or strategy with. Is what is your brand story? What's your why? Let's take that story, let's tell it in long form, let's get copy on it, and let's break it up on how we deliver that brand story to the client through our multi-channels, all spokes. It's a branded house, not a house of brands, and you are getting that brand story redundantly over and over until it becomes the lifeblood of the organization.
Yeah, that's good stuff. I'm definitely a believer in story and in story brand, and I think a key distinction in that is also understanding the role that your customer plays in the story. And it sounds like you may be familiar with Donald Miller's book, Story Branding, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so one of his key points in there is your goal is to make your customer the hero of the story or the journey. And so I think that's a very important point, and it's such a huge distinction from what comes natural to us. Like, we want to make ourselves the hero, right? We want to make our businesses the hero, when in reality we exist to serve, to make them the hero.
I love that. No. I'm reading the book right now because I literally typed in on Audible branding. And so I've been story branding for years, didn't even really know it was a thing. I just always felt like, to connect with my audience, they really want to know who I am, who my company is, what my team's about, what are our core values. And so searching through Audible, looking at marketing books, I ran across story branding and actually read it on the backside of deploying the story brand strategy. And literally, that is what you just said was my one takeaway from the book, is making sure that our sales team understands that the client's the hero and we're the guide. Who's the most trusted person in the story? It's the guide. It's Yoda. It's the Whitewater Rapids guy on the back of the boat saying left, right. Don't get me wrong, we made it through it, but by pounding our chest as a company and saying we're the best, we just diminished the story and diminished the brand to a certain extent. So I love that. I think that making the consumer the hero and using our position of authority through authenticity to become the guide is the trick, is the tactical, practical methodology for sure.
Yeah. Would y'all mind if I share 2 very tactical things that people listening or watching could do?
Sure, absolutely.
Not really related to story per se, but 2 examples that I think people in any industry, any business could take and actually run with. So back when I had the lawn care company, one of the things that we would do is when we would get a client in a new neighborhood, so this was residential side, whenever we get a client in a new neighborhood, what we would do is we'd go to them and say, look, we'd agree on the price, we'd agree on, how often we were coming to service and what services we were doing. We'd agree on all that. And then we would go to them and say, look, just curious, would you mind if we gave you all of this free for the first month? And they would say, well, what do you mean? Why would you do this? And we'd say, here's what we want to do. We have this letter that's already pre-written that looks like it's coming from you, Mr. Smith or Miss Smith. And it says, hey, this is Mr. Smith, your neighbor over here on X Street. And I just want to let you know, as a neighbor in our neighborhood, as one of my neighbors in the neighborhood, that we just switched our lawn care to whatever our company name was. Our name was First Call Lawn Care. We just switched to First Call Lawn Care. The reason we switched was, great service, great pricing, great whatever. They've agreed to offer you an exclusive discount as a neighbor in this neighborhood. I just want to send you this letter. Here's their contact information. Here's a coupon for when you call them to get a discount. So what you're doing is you're leveraging someone else. You're leveraging their thoughts about you, and you're creating, in some ways, a micro story around their experience with you, even though you're just getting started. So then what we would do, if they agree to that, we would take it and we would literally just mail it to everyone in the neighborhood. So when the letter came in the mail, it looked like it was coming from Mr. Smith to all his neighbors in the neighborhood. It didn't look like it was coming from our lawn care company. It looked like it was coming from Mr. Smith. So again, anyone who services, in a residential area like that can employ something similar. It may not be a letter from the homeowner. It could just be a letter from the company that says, hey, we're already working in your area. And because we're already in your neighborhood, we can offer our service. We can offer our product at a discounted rate. Here's 10% off, but you have to reach out now. You have to book the call, whatever the things may be. So that's one. Just super quick tactical thing somebody can do. And then on the other side, this is something that we've had tremendous success with for our clients. And we called this a sympathy prize. So I'm going to use the generator business. So home generator, full house generator as the example. I don't know the math. I don't know if it works specifically. So instead of, if anyone listening, instead of automatically think of why it wouldn't work, instead try to figure out how you could make something similar work, is what I want to challenge you to do. So let's just say that we're going to run this marketing campaign for whole house generators. And what we're going to do is we're going to do it on social media. We're going to run it on Facebook or Instagram or both. It doesn't matter. And what we're going to do is we're going to say, we're going to give away, in celebration of our X anniversary, we're going to give away one whole house generator to someone in our parish or in our county or in our state, whatever your territory may be. One whole house generator. This is all the bells and whistles. This is the top of the line. This is the thing. All you have to do to enter is you have to tag someone in the comments who you think would love to win this and comment that you've actually done that. So again, what you then do is you run that contest, and there's some keys here. If you're going to do this on social media, this may change. So don't trust what I'm about to say because this changes over time based on Facebook. Currently, you have 1 week period in order to message people who comment on your page. After a week, if you're not friends, if they don't follow you, you cannot direct message them. So that may vary over time. But what you do is you run the contest, you announce the winner, you give away the big thing. And in doing so, you end up with, depending on how big the thing is you're giving away, you end up with literally hundreds of comments. We did this, for example, for a pizza restaurant. They were giving away a year worth of pizza. It was like $1,000 gift card. So pizza every week for the year, $1,000 gift card. They ended up with 700 people commenting, trying to win this. So here's where the magic comes in though. You give it away, you announce the winner, you do this big thing, make a big showcase out of it, but then you go in and you direct message every single person who didn't win. And you say, Mr. Smith, you changed the name. Everything else is copy and paste. Mr. Smith, unfortunately, you didn't win the grand prize. However, as our way of saying thank you for participating, we wanted to give you this other special gift. That gift could be a discount on your services. That gift could be, something else to book the consultation. So if I was doing this for a generator, whole house generator, and again, I don't know the math, so it may not work, but we give the thing away, we go back in and we message everybody and we say, unfortunately, you didn't win the grand prize, but as our way of saying thank you for participating in this, here's what we want to give you. We want to give you a complimentary home inspection where we come in and we evaluate your property and determine what it would actually cost to get a generator. In addition to that, should you choose to move forward, we're going to give you a 20% discount or $1,000 discount. Sometimes using dollars makes it more concrete for people versus percentages. off your new home system. So again, you now have a list of whatever that number of people are who have raised their hand and said, I want the thing that you have, right?
Right.
They've pre-qualified themselves. You have this massive list of people now who pre-qualified themselves. So we call this the sympathy prize. You then give them the sympathy prize to nurture those leads, to build those leads, and to follow up with those leads.
That's great stuff. And there's nothing, people throw the word around like tactics or gimmicks or anything like that. Everybody's a skeptic nowadays. But ultimately, what you're doing, even if there are consumers of my products, your products, Nick's products that are listening to something like this, there's no gimmick here. We are trying to engage you as a buyer, because here's the thing. If you truly believe in the product and services that you're selling is going to positively impact someone's life, sometimes you just have to move their hand more towards the action button to help them. And so ultimately, one of our core values is impact. We truly believe in our corporate structure, core values, brand story here, that what we provide is going to change your life for the better, positively. You sell marketing. You believe in your heart when you go to bed at night that your mission is to help people, to help bring their brand out. So sometimes gimmicks, tactics, tools, contests, there's nothing being hidden here other than the fact that we're trying to engage our buyer's audience, push them more towards buying the thing, because we know that we're designed to fulfill and that our mission is to positively impact your life. So I would say this: there are some trades out there, such as I guess it's called the trade, but attorneys catch a bad rap. I would say most of them are really trying to help you. Some of them aren't, but marketers, sometimes you get a bad rap. Snake oil salesmen or used car salesmen, there are people out there that are doing that. And then there are marketing companies who are legitimately going to invest the most valuable tool, and the most extinct tool is our time. Our time is expiring every day. So as a marketer, in order for me to be effective and you to be effective and Nick to be effective, we got to invest a ton of time with our clients. So I'm going to invest my time, tools, treasures into building you a story brand, getting you out to the marketplace, fulfilling your marketing wheel. There's nothing to be, how can I say that? There's no snake oil there. We're really trying to help people. And I think I want to lift up all the marketers out there, that, hey, it's a tough time, but tough times call for tough people. And the market's getting tough, and there's congested digital landscape. Means you just got to work harder. Means you got to get after it. And so as much as a fluff as the market puts out there for marketers, sometimes you just got to get to work and get greasy, right, and get some elbow grease in the game and get rolling.
Hey, Wayne, real quick before you go, I know you have to go, but we often ask this, and I want to ask it of you. Could you recommend 2 to 3 books, and one of them has to be Full Circle Marketing? Yeah, but 2 to 3 books that if you're a young entrepreneur or just starting out that you would recommend that they read, or something that has changed your business life. And then also how, if somebody wants to reach out to Ugly Mug Marketing, follow you, get to know you, use your services, just go ahead and give us the plug, man.
Sure. So the very first book that I would recommend is not a business book at all. It's called The Mountain Is You. It's an interesting title, but the whole book is about overcoming self-sabotage. So for me, that book, I read it a couple of years ago, and I return to it on a regular basis. Very, very profound book, in my opinion. And I think it's very useful because as marketers, as young entrepreneurs, oftentimes we become our own worst enemies. So that's one book that I definitely recommend. Another book that I'd recommend is Influence by Robert. I've heard his last name, Cialdini. I don't know how you officially say his last name. Really profound book that explores the psychology of how people are influenced. So whether you're in sales, whether you're in marketing, whether you're in really any industry, that book is very, very interesting book to read. In terms of how, I think those books, I'm not recommending Full Circle. You already did. So thank you for that. The other question, I guess, was just how can people follow or find us?
Yes.
Simplest place, our website. That's just uglymugmarketing.com. All of our socials there, all of our email addresses, phone numbers, all that stuff's all in that one spot.
Excellent,
Cool.
man.
I have two things in our rapid fire round that I wanted to say, ask in closing. Is again, I'll go back to PBD. One of my favorite books, I'm looking at it up on the shelf, is Your Next 5 Moves. So, talking to up and coming entrepreneurs, marketers specifically, getting out into the space, what's their next 5 moves? What's the things that they should put together for a marketer, aspiring marketer, specifically speaking, maybe to yourself 15, 20 years ago? What's the next 5 moves a up and coming marketer should make right now?
Yeah, I don't know if I'll get all 5, but the very first thing that I would say is you have to have the mindset that you can't be better, you have to be different. You can't be better, you have to be different. So what I see so often is that we come into it and we're going to try to figure out how to design Instagram ads a little bit better than somebody else, or we're going to come into it and, how to write Facebook posts that are really compelling. And that's a little better. Instead, you need to think, how do I do things differently? Because we don't need better, we need different. That's number one. Number two is you have to get the experience. You can't just have textbook experience. You need real world experience. So whether that is volunteering to do social for a nonprofit that you love, a church that you love, whatever it may be, get actual real experience under your belt. And then the next one would be a continual student. Like if you're just graduating, you're just, getting out into the world, don't think your education is over. Really, your education is just beginning. So the books that were mentioned today, listen to some podcasts, listen to the books that they're recommending, study, watch YouTube video, all the things. Don't give up on studying. But the flip side of that's the next point is don't become just a student, become a practicer. Because there's this great quote that is, knowing and not doing is the same as not knowing. So knowing and not doing is the same as not knowing. So it doesn't do you any good to have all this knowledge and learn all these things if you're not actually executing and trying those things. And then the final one, this may be the 5th one, I didn't count, but would be this: study human psychology. Because at the end of the day, all sales and all marketing is about human psychology and math.
Oh, man, that's some absolutely profound information. I think we've got a fire hose we've been feeding our audience out of for the last hour. So maybe we could do a round 2 with you for sure and get into some nitty gritty. But that was a marketing masterclass, in my opinion. As much as you can get through a podcast in an hour or so. So if it's cool with you guys, I appreciate it having you here. If you want to get to reach any of us, you're looking for a home standby generator in the lower Gulf Coast area, Louisiana, Mississippi Gulf Coast, you can go to gengators.com. That's gengators with a Z. If you're interested in blue collar service marketing, you can go to Gen X MMG. Nick and I have Gen X Marketing and Management Group. And if you want to get in touch with Wayne, you can go to russellbrandlookalike.com. No, I'm just kidding. You can go to Ugly Mug Marketing. You hear it up on the screen. But man, that was amazing, Wayne. Thank you for joining us so much on Prime Mover Podcast. We'll be glad to have you again. And thank you for all the nuggets that we retained as well.
Thank y'all both, Travis and Nick, for your time, the opportunity. And I always love chatting about marketing and business. So thanks again.
Yeah. You go sell yourself, folks. Be a prime mover. Signing off.
Thank you, Wayne. Thank you, guys.